We spend thousands of dollars on locks, reinforced doors, and high-definition cameras. We build fortresses to keep the chaos of the outside world at bay, convinced that if we can just monitor every inch of our property we will be safe. But safety is an illusion, a fragile construct of glass and copper wiring. What happens when the technology we trust to watch over us becomes the very blindfold that hides the monster standing in the corner? What happens when you realize that the silence in your home isn't empty, but holding its breath? The house was a mid-century ranch style in a sprawling development just outside of Denver, the kind of place where the driveways were wide and the silence at night was heavy enough to press against your eardrums. For Mike, it was a sanctuary. After a messy breakup and 6 months of sleeping on a friend's couch in a cramped city apartment, the silence was exactly what he paid for. He was a systems architect for a cloud computing firm, a man who found comfort in logic, in lines of code, and in things that could be controlled. The first thing he did upon receiving the keys wasn't to unpack his clothes or set up his bed, it was to install the Sentinel. The Sentinel was a top-tier military-grade DIY security ecosystem. Sensors on every window, glass break detectors, and, most importantly, 4K cameras with night vision and AI motion tracking. Mike mounted the primary camera in the corner of the sunken living room, giving it a panoramic view of the front door, the hallway to the bedrooms, and the kitchen island. He synced it to his phone, watched the crisp live feed buffer into existence, and felt a profound sense of ownership. This was his domain. He was the watchman. However, within 24 hours, the system's sensitivity became a nuisance. The house had central air conditioning, and directly below the primary camera's view in the far corner of the living room, stood a massive, decorative ficus tree left by the previous owners. Every time the AC kicked on, the vent blasted the ficus, causing its thick, plastic leaves to dance. The Sentinel's AI interpreted this as an intruder. Every 45 minutes, Mike's phone would buzz with a critical alert, motion-detected notification. Frustrated and sleep-deprived by the second night, Mike dove into the advanced settings of the app. He found a feature called privacy masking, colloquially known in the forums as a dead zone. It allowed the user to draw a gray box over a specific section of the camera's view. Anything inside that box would be ignored by the motion sensors and the recording software. It was a digital blind spot. Mike dragged his finger across the screen, drawing a red square over the corner with the ficus tree and the heavy velvet curtains behind it. He hit save. The notifications stopped. Peace returned. The strangeness began on a Tuesday, 4 days after the dead zone was established. It started with the mundane, the kind of things a rational mind dismisses as fatigue. Mike came home from work to find the toilet seat up. He lived alone and he was meticulous about his habits, but he shrugged it off, assuming he'd been groggy that morning. The next day he found the milk carton on the counter, sweating in the afternoon sun, the cap lying next to it. He blamed the stress of a new project at work. He poured the spoiled milk down the sink, cursing his own forgetfulness. But Buster, his golden retriever, wasn't forgetful. Buster was a goofy, lovable animal who usually greeted everyone with a wagging tail, but by Thursday the dog had changed. He wouldn't enter the living room. When Mike sat on the couch to watch TV, Buster would sit in the hallway whining low in his throat, his eyes fixed on the corner with the ficus tree. The corner Mike had told the camera to ignore. Mike scolded the dog, assuming there was a mouse in the walls or perhaps a draft. He dragged Buster by the collar to his bed near the couch, but as soon as Mike let go, the dog scrambled back to the hallway, claws clicking frantically on the hardwood. It was annoying but not terrifying. Not yet. The terror arrived on Friday night. A heavy thunderstorm had rolled down from the Rockies, knocking out the streetlights and plunging the subdivision into an abyssal darkness. Mike was sitting on the couch, the only light coming from the television screen playing a rerun of a sitcom. He was eating a slice of pizza, a bottle of beer resting on the coffee table. The wind howled outside, rattling the window panes, masking any sound from inside the house. Mike's phone buzzed on the cushion next to him. It wasn't an alert from the Sentinel system, it was a notification from his cloud storage provider, Daily Highlight Reel Ready. The system automatically stitched together clips of movement from the day into a time-lapse for easy review. Bored during a commercial break, Mike unlocked his phone and tapped the notification. He watched himself leave for work in fast forward. He saw the cleaner come and go. He saw himself return, take off his coat, and walk to the kitchen. Then the video cut to a clip from 20 minutes ago. The timestamp read 9:14 p.m. On the screen, Mike saw the back of his own head as he sat on the couch watching TV. The room was dark in the video, illuminated by the night vision of the camera. The image was grainy, ghostly green and gray. In the video, Mike picked up a slice of pizza and took a bite. Then he leaned forward to grab his beer. In that split second where Mike leaned forward, creating a gap between his back and the couch cushions, movement flickered in the corner of the screen. Mike froze, his thumb hovering over the pause button. He rewound the clip. He played it at normal speed. In the video, as the on-screen Mike leaned forward, a hand, long, pale, and impossibly thin, emerged from the darkness of the dead zone behind the ficus tree. It didn't look like a human hand. The fingers were too long, the joints too pronounced. The hand reached out with terrifying speed and precision, snatched a piece of crust from Mike's plate, and retracted back into the shadows of the corner before Mike leaned back. The motion sensor hadn't triggered an alarm because Mike had told it not to. He had programmed the system to ignore the monster living 3 feet away from him. A cold sensation, sharper than ice, washed down Mike's spine. He was still holding his phone. The timestamp on the video was from 20 minutes ago. He was sitting in the exact same spot. He didn't turn around. His instincts, primal and screaming, told him that any sudden movement would be a death sentence. The air in the room suddenly felt heavy, charged with a malignant static. He could smell it now, a faint, sour odor of unwashed clothes and stale sweat that he had attributed to the wet dog. Slowly, with trembling fingers, Mike minimized the highlight reel and opened the live feed of the camera. The video on his phone screen showed the room he was currently sitting in. He saw the back of his own head. And he saw the corner. Because he was viewing the live feed, the dead zone, masking wasn't active on the display. The software overlay was gone. The corner was visible. Crouched behind the ficus tree, squeezed into the small triangular gap between the plant stand and the wall, was a man. He was folded up like an insect, wearing gray thermal clothing that blended perfectly with the shadows. His skin was the color of old parchment, his hair matted and wild. But the worst part was his eyes. In the live feed, the intruder wasn't looking at Mike's back. He was looking directly into the lens of the camera. He was smiling, a wide, unhinged grin that stretched too far across his face. He held one long, dirty finger to his lips in a shush motion. He knew Mike was watching. He knew how the camera worked. Then the man in the camera shifted his gaze. He looked away from the lens and focused on the back of Mike's neck. Slowly, the intruder began to unfold, rising from the crouch, looming over the back of the couch like a spider uncurling its legs. Mike didn't scream. He didn't think. The adrenaline dumped into his system was so potent it almost blinded him. He threw himself forward, crashing onto the coffee table, shattering the beer bottle. He scrambled on hands and knees toward the hallway, shouting for Buster. He heard a sound behind him, a wet, guttural intake of air, followed by the heavy thud of bare feet hitting the floorboards. Mike didn't look back. He sprinted for the front door, fumbling with the deadbolt, his fingers slick with sweat and beer. He could hear the rush of movement behind him, the whisper of fabric, the clicking of joints. He threw the door open and tumbled out into the rain, sprinting toward his car. He locked himself inside the vehicle and jammed the keys into the ignition, his eyes glued to the front door of his house. It stood wide open, framing the darkness of the hallway. Nothing came out. When the police arrived 10 minutes later, guns drawn, they swept the house. They found the back door unlocked. They found the nest behind the ficus tree, a pile of Mike's old t-shirts, food wrappers, a knife taken from the kitchen block, and a jagged hole cut into the drywall leading into the crawlspace. But the intruder was gone. Mike moved out the next day. He never spent another night in that house. But the horror didn't end with the move. A week later, while staying at a hotel, Mike logged into the security cloud account to cancel his subscription and delete his data. He decided to check the access logs, desperate to understand how the intruder knew to hide in that specific spot, or how he knew when Mike was watching the camera. The logs showed that there were 2 admin users on the account. One was Mike. The other was a username, ghost__the_machine. The account had been created 3 months prior to Mike moving in. The access logs showed that ghost__the_machine had logged in every single night, watching Mike sleep, watching him eat, watching him live. And the IP address for the second user? It didn't come from a remote hacker in a foreign country. The IP address originated from inside the house. It originated from the smart fridge in the kitchen, which had been connected to the local Wi-Fi. The intruder hadn't just been hiding in the corner. He had been hiding in the network, hacking the very devices Mike used to feel safe, waiting for the new tenant to create a blind spot he could call home. So, tonight, before you turn off the lights and trust your safety to a lens and a screen, take a good look at the corners of your room. Ask yourself what your camera isn't seeing. Ask yourself who might be watching the feed along with you. If this story made you check your locks, consider joining our community. We explore the darkest corners of fiction and reality. Click the subscribe button, like the video, and share it with someone who trusts technology a little too much. Until next time, keep your eyes open.